And it's real.
We are officially recording and live streaming. I wanted to let everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. So as Holly just said, we are live streaming on YouTube. And so if you have not been social media famous, you are today. I am Sika Rose Green. I'm the Executive Director of Children's Services Council of Leon County, and I will call this meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. and ask Ms. Clay to call the roll.
Donna Austin,
Here.
Katie Britt Williams, Raquel Cisneros,
Here.
Whitfield Leland, Yolanda Purcell,
Here.
Ayesha Scott, Neil Skeen,
Here.
Mary Diallo,
Here.
Corbin Denegi,
Here.
Max Hurley,
Here.
Deborah Lloyd, Dr. Lenny Marshall,
Good morning.
Bernice McMillan,
Here.
Denise Shorter.
Here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And so what we'd like to do now, you should have the agenda in front of you. We'll entertain a motion from any member here to adopt the agenda.
I'll move that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Skeen, and we need a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Whitfield. I always want to say Leland. Yeah, Mr. Leland. Hubba, Mr. Hubba, there we go. Has our second, and if it all is okay, we'll approve that by consensus. All right, outstanding. So now we are at general public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any general public comment?
There's no general public comment.
All right, thank you so much. And at this time, I will turn the session over to our procurement manager, Holly McPhail.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you again and reiterate the comments that that Ms. Green just shared. We really appreciate all of the work that you put into not only evaluating each of these and turning in your score sheets, but sitting through a very long day of presentations and question and answer sessions with all of our applicants. You will notice that the people that were on your subgroup are here with you, as well as a whole nother group. Our goal for the end of this meeting is to come up with, by consensus, a proposal that will be presented, or excuse me, a recommendation that will be presented to the council that identifies funding suggestions. So this is dissimilar from what we have done for our summer procurements, which is a request for applications where you just settle on scores and those scores are passed on to the council. This is an RFP process, a request for proposals, in which this committee, as members of our community, will make the recommendation based on the scoring factors and criteria that have been set before you, as well as the allocated budget amount to kind of make the decision between the two different groups. So we are going to first use kind of our first hour to discuss all of the proposals from both groups. And then kind of settle on those scores. And once those scores are final, each of you has in front of you your own individual score sheet that was submitted. It's just a printout of what you submitted electronically. We will ask that you sign this to make it final. In essence, this is a draft form as it is currently. We will ask you to sign it to make it final. But if there's any changes on the score sheets based on today's discussion that you would like to make, you would just note it. So under organizational profile for the first applicant, say you wanted to change that 1 point higher, 1 point lower, whatever you want to do, or maybe even more dramatically, you would just score it out, make that change and do a little initial next to it so that we know that that is your official record being changed. I'll do that change in live time and show it on the screen so that once we reach consensus that all of the scores for both groups of proposals are settled, we will then go into the discussion of how to make a recommendation to the council. That will require a couple of things for you to consider, and I want to just go over the resources that we made available to you. The first one is the sheet that has the green and yellow highlight. This is every application that was, or every proposal that was submitted for all of our service lines, not just family supports, but also youth mentoring. It was important for us that you saw the breadth and diversity of all of the applications. And what we've noted on here for you to help you in your deliberations is a single star means that they applied for multiple service lines or submitted multiple applications across the 3 different opportunities. And then a double star means that they're currently receiving funding for youth development and summer learning programs through our summer procurement process. That's just so that you have all of the information before you. The yellow lines you'll see is the total number or the total amount of the requests for your category. So you're looking at $4.5 million of requests for family strengthening. Our allocated budget per our council is only 2.4. So you will collectively need to make some very difficult decisions today, often the place that our council members find themselves. The part below is related to our youth mentoring. You don't need to make any decisions related to youth mentoring programs. That meeting is this afternoon. We will share with youth mentoring the recommendation that emerges from today. But they don't have to consider that in any decision making. You don't have to consider that in any decision making because theirs is an RFA, an application. Their scores will be final and just passed on to the council for the council to make decisions. But we wanted you to have all of the information presented to you in the same way that we will present all of the information to the council. So procedurally, that's what we will accomplish today. The one thing I failed to mention is before we go into that discussion for the recommendation formulation, we will ask that the group collectively appoints or decides on a spokesperson for the group. This individual would be responsible for working with staff to craft the formal memo that will go directly to the council, as well as be invited to our June 15th meeting to present that recommendation on behalf of the entire work group. I know I just went over a lot of procedural things. Hopefully it sounds familiar because I feel like we've talked about it and we've written about it, and hopefully, but this is the first time we're here and now's the time to do the work. Are there any questions about the procedure? Okay, then we will dive right in. We'll first take up the score sheet for the research supported. So for those of you that were on the research supported team, if you'll just kind of raise your hand so everyone in the group knows that you were on research supported. Okay. So we're going to first take up that sheet. That's the first one that starts with proposal number 1, 2, 3, 8, and 9. I will, for the purposes of those viewing, I'm going to share it on our screen. So anyone who's watching online with us will also be able to see what we're discussing. So the first proposal we will take up, and I'll just kind of do an overview of that proposal, and then we'll open it up for any comments from those individuals who participated on that to ask questions, talk about why you scored. You do not have to make a comment if you do not want to, but I will give the opportunity for you to make a comment if you would like. The first one was the Boys Town, North Florida. They had an overall score of a 574. That math is not right. I will check. Sorry about that. I just looked at that like,
Actually, the next. They're all over.
Yeah, I think I just did the math wrong. So this is why it's a draft document. We will take that. Oh, no, I think that's right. It just should be up to 700. That's the difference. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check my math.
It should be up to 700.
So it's really just the thing right above it.
Yeah, each of us got 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that should be.
It's just the part above it. I just want to make sure that I'm simply doing this really quick. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
No, it's correct. It's just above it where it says 500. That should just say 700. So it had an average. It had a total score of 574 with an average score of an 82. You can see the averages highlighted there for each of them. Are there any committee members who would like to speak to their scores for Boys Town or make any comment related to Boys Town?
What you mean is as far as like, oh,
Yeah, so if there's just any comments justifying your score or have questions about other scores. So you might notice the average is a 13.6, the lowest was a 12, the highest was a 15. I mean, that's a pretty small range. Oftentimes we'll use this opportunity if there's like an 8 and a 15 and that the range is really broad. This is only a 3-point difference, but this is your opportunity to kind of speak to any questions you might have. So for example, in program design, we have a low score of a 30 and a high score of a 38. An 8-point difference, 8 and 9-point difference, not a drastic difference, but it might be something worth commenting on. So this is just an opportunity, if there's any comments to the record that you would like to make related to Boys Town and their proposal.
Well, I'll say one. I had the high score, I guess, with 38. I think that I really like school-based mental health counseling. It's very efficient. It's much more comprehensive. And I can't say I came into this particularly familiar with Boys Town other than the movie from 100 years ago. But it struck me that they had a good proposal. I'm a little worried about sort of completion outcomes as opposed to qualitative outcomes. And I would say in my whole evaluation that I think it made me focus on the real need for the CSC then to do real evaluation that's both quantitative and qualitative in terms of outcomes, and perhaps even extend it, 6 months later and 1 year later. And I think that would be important. The other thing, I don't want to do a monologue, but the other thing is that it was interesting that one of the schools is already a what's it called, SICA, a community partnership school. And it'll be interesting to compare two schools, one with that basis underneath it in existence and the other without, and then to have a comparison school or two that would also be, say, a Title I school where we could look at comparable outcomes. So, but those were my thoughts on that program, why I rated it high, even though the total cost is really a big chunk of the money.
I can supplement that just because I think the proposal would have been stronger if they had included data from the schools they were in and other states that he referenced. He talked about Nevada. I know there was a letter of recommendation from Palm Beach, but there was no data to indicate what those completion rates were. And so I would have rated it higher had some of that information been in there, because otherwise there really isn't any data to support what the program outcomes are.
Thank you.
so when I read the proposal, I see everything is kind of school based, and understanding the places where the school is at. You need more of the mental health aspect at home. I think that's the question when we didn't hear about the time of, how many hours they did, in certain areas, and it was really low, like. And the thing is, like, y'all already in one school, and I still didn't see the numbers of the school that y'all already in, but y'all telling me y'all nationwide with what y'all doing, and it's evidence-based, but I don't have no evidence. And then y'all want $1 million to make it happen. And it's like really nothing to, support. And I get it, I'm all about, programming in schools, but it has to be a balance somewhere, because, a lot of issues with their mental health and stuff happens away from school, not in school. So that's why I suppose, program design, I did give it a 30, but it's nothing in there that we can see that we can really say that it'll work for $1 million.
Any additional comments related to Boys Town? Great discussion. anything shared influence you wanting to change the score on the permanent record, or do you all feel confident with the scores submitted? All right, we're gonna take up the next tab. Does that work, guys? Yeah. I'm gonna keep the train moving. So the next tab we'll take up is the Carter's Corner Community Services. So you'll see for this one, it had an overall score of 556.5 with an average score of 79.5. If you kind of looking through the organizational profile, an average of 12.6, program design 33.8, program evidence 15.1, and budget of an 18. You'll notice right above it what the total amounts were for each category. So I will open up discussion for Carter's Corner Community Services. And just as a note, while that's the agency, the program was specifically for 24/7 dads.
Okay. I really struggled with this one because I really feel like he's definitely involved in the community, and I know he's working with prison populations, which especially if you're looking to enhance parenting skills. But if you look at the budget, I really had a hard time that those indirect costs were nearly 40% of the total ask. And that is a big chunk to say, indirect costs, not program associated. What is that? Because it didn't look like the staffing was there to support. What was, I just, a big question mark with those indirect costs, 40%.
Yeah, I'm putting.
You good?
Well, I was just gonna say that, and the cost per child served or cost per individual is very high compared with everybody else, even though the total budget is the opposite of Boys Town, sort of the lowest. And it's another place where I think in all of these really, we didn't really know what their program, we know 24/7 Dads is an evidence-based program. We don't know what their program has produced in the past. And that was why it got my lowest score.
So I scored a high, and I'm gonna be honest. Like I see the work, and the work that they do, we need more of it. And I'm more than willing, even, and like I even spend my dollars, but I'm more than willing to, when I see the work, to put, because at the end of the day, in a sense, we always say we can't put a dollar amount on work, but we're putting a dollar amount on it. You know what I mean? So I scored them the highest. Their promotions, their social media is, everything they do is open to the public. It's not like, they're hard to find. They're in a central location. They work with all kind of youth, Florida State, taking them out of town. So, and all this is on their profile, as far as their programming. So when I could see that and I'm looking at, these numbers, like, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I may, but who knows what the cost of what they're doing. It may be in the price one set, but when they come to do it this year, it's a totally different price because of inflation. So, and out of all the rest of them that's on here, they were the price. That's in my opinion. So that's where I scored them.
I agree about the evidence of being in the community, and that's why I gave them the score that I gave them. And in addition to that, as it relates to the budget, I just believe that what they need is they just need that extra layer of support to make sure that they are able to execute in the manner in which they choose to. I think that he expressed to us that this was their first time getting budget. He's unfamiliar with this territory. So I, even though looking at the budget and agreeing with what you were saying, I just think that he just needs that extra layer of support. But that program is one, in my opinion, that came before us, that I believe that people are on the ground and doing.
No,
I think Ms. Busho was.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's interesting, but because I scored this particular group low because I couldn't see that, right? And so I thought that it was important that we be able to, that somehow he was able to communicate to us what that looked like. And I think it was a failed opportunity. We had to do a lot of guessing. I felt like it was his job to more operationalize those missing pieces. And so I felt like there was a lot of, there could be a lot of help given to uplift that, because I agree. I think it's a good cause, but the presentation, written and in person, could have been uplifted a little bit.
So can I speak?
I think Ms. Raquel first.
No, and I just wanted, I will say, I want to preface it that saying that I could be persuaded because I really did see, it's just like, God, I really love that he's, reaching out, he's going into the correctional facilities. I really like that he's hosting, meetups, like he's like on the ground going. And so my concerns would be capacity because it's all volunteer, so he's going from this almost grassroots structure to building an organization with a grant, and managing that. And so it's like, is that capacity there? And that's where, where I'm like, okay, slow down a little bit, think it through. So the support needed from the Children's Services Council to ensure that those obligations are fulfilled, that metrics are being met, and that there's just due diligence throughout the 2-year term would be there. So that's where, again, I can be persuaded. Because I really with this one, I really struggled. So I'm like, man, I could see this and it's really great, but ...
So when we talk about grassroots and we talk about taking the next step to they see it. They do the work. I mean, it ain't. I'm not just saying it. Like when we really evaluated Wayne, even if he didn't give us a good or what we thought was a great presentation, we have to understand that they're grassroots. They're not a national organization that been presenting themselves and knowing how to put it on paper, but they worked would even that out. And it's our responsibility not just to rely on him, but to go double check to figure out, okay, is he doing what he said he's doing? And if you go check, he lining it up. At the end of the day, does he have the capacity? At the end of the day, money gives you capacity. I mean, it's a lot of volunteer work now, but look, he's been successful for a long time with volunteers. He got to have some type of capacity if he's doing the work in the community. We've seen it. So that's just my take on that, and it's hard if we're going to say that the people that's really doing the work, these are grassroots organizations, they're going to need our help and they're going to need the finances to do it. They will never know how to run it if, he asking for a little bit of money. We see his work and he's well known in the community. Boys Time asking for a whole lot of money and we can't even see the work. So I'm kind of like, when we make a decision, we got to kind of balance it out. But that's why I gave him the higher score that I got. And I understand what everybody's saying, but I see it a little bit different when I really know and do the research.
Can I ask the last?
Yes, and I just want to remind people that we're not picking winners and losers, right? At this point, that's not what we're picking right now, but we're just kind of finalizing our scores. So just keep that in mind that when we do get to the discussion of who should be funded and who, in terms of recommendation, that we're going to consider some of this stuff again. So I do just want to preface that they are called our community investment partners. They are not just our grantees. The CSC is committed to evaluation services. We're committed to budget audits and accountability. We're committed to additional quality assurance in that building, as well as those who don't get funded will also receive additional capacity building services. So know that even if they're not funded, they're still our partners for success. I just want you to kind of hold that truth as we move forward and having that discussion. But yes.
And that was going to be my question, was what services would the Children's Service Council provide in that effort?
So
Have that when we have the full
yeah,
conversation.
so, and that's what I was gonna say, when we have the full conversation, we will have that. Now is just the time for you to give your impression, why you scored. If you are open to hearing what your colleagues are saying, their opinions are and why they scored, and it can change your score, then that's why Holly at the end asked if you'd like to change your score. So we don't want you to end up in a debate at this point about what the right, this one over this one. We're just talking about the merits of the particular program that we're agending at that time.
Perfect. So that'll give us the opportunity to go through all of them because again, 2.4 versus 4.5 million in requests.
Right.
If we dive too hard into just these two, we're never going to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So at this point, I would like to ask, is anybody interested in altering their scores for proposal number 2?
I'd be willing to change my program design. I'm at 32 to go to 35. That's after hearing some of the, maybe like, I feel like hearing some of your support and.
Thank you, Mrs. Scenarios. Any other revisions? Not from your series zone.
Now, I want to go ahead and move my evidence base and budget up to 20 and 24.
Can you tell me what your original one was?
My original was 15 and for the evidence base, the budget was 20.
Okay. Those changes have been noted. Thank you, sir. Any additional revisions?
Let me also remind you, you can change your score. You don't have to qualify it. So you can say, I'm changing my score. You don't have to give us all the reasons why.
But please, as you're going, note it on your personal
Please
paper.
do, because you have to sign that.
Because you will have to turn this in. Perfect. Thank you so much.
I would like to change my budget score to
Can you tell me what it was originally?
17, and I want to change it to 20.
Noted. Any additional revisions? Okay, this, with the revisions, it changes the overall score to a 572.5, with your average being an 81.786. We will now take up tab number 3, Legal Services of North Florida. They had an overall score of 568 with an average of an 81.143. I got very detailed with that decimal point. So you'll see kind of going across organizational profile, 13.9, program design, 33.7, program evidence, 14.3, budget 19.3. Now open up tab 3, legal services for discussion.
I think the services that they are proposing to offer are needed. I just don't see a connection with the community. I'm very concerned about that. I'm concerned that the type of change that they propose to happen won't actually happen because there is no connection with the community.
I had in my notes that while I agree that it is on staffing capacity, if it were to get funded, I think it'd be really important that their marketing efforts are concentrated in the zip codes that the council is really interested in, because I just didn't see that connection. And so otherwise.
So I think my biggest concern, is saying that, like, I don't see the connection. Like, I don't see how, I just don't see the connection. I mean, it's not like, they do great work. But I just don't see it.
All right, I'll do the other side. We'll be on the opposite sides. And I'll preface it by saying I'm a lawyer by training. Here's the advantage, I think, of this. You don't see lawyers in the community. They don't particularly solicit business. They don't serve they don't have sort of a big group of people. They're serving an individual client, and it can often be at a most crucial moment, like an eviction, a claim to collect a debt, all kinds of things that basically support the existing legal rights of that individual client and help get them not from this counsel, but from the person on the other side of the transaction, what they are due. And in that sense, I mean, I think that the evidence, the study that they cited was a 7-to-1 return on that money. And that's often, you figure a lawyer is going to get 14 or 15% of your reward, your what you get from a piece of litigation, and it's money that comes into that family, and often the process of going through to a litigation, eviction, or on the debt or whatever it might be, is something that will improve their own behavior in the future in terms of how they think about the deals that they do and the business they undertake. I scored this as one of the higher ones, and it was largely for that reason. The individual health, the intensity of health on that individual family takes a lot of time to do a piece of litigation. And that's why I thought this was important.
No, after just kind of listening to everybody, that was not really my highest score, but I am starting to be concerned about the quality of work that can be done without the trust of the general population. I think that my ears are definitely becoming more and more tuned to that. Like, how much work can you do where there's no trust? And I wish that there would be some investment from Legal Services, which is an outstanding organization in my opinion. But I do wish there would be some investment in this thing we keep hearing over and over and over again, and we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, we don't feel that there's a deep connection. And so, I think that that's a score changer for me.
Based on this discussion, would anyone like to submit a revision? I would ask you to identify which category, what your current score is, and what you're switching it to. So Ms. Pacho, you mentioned it's a score changer for you.
A little bit, I'd like to take a peek at the program design and go more from like 35 to maybe 32.
Okay. That change is noted. Any other revisions from the committee members? Seeing none, this revision changes the score, the overall score to a 565 with an average score of an 80.714. We'll now take up tab 8, the Oasis Center. This is the first of 3 proposals. The first one is on counseling. For counseling, they had an overall score of 568 with an average score of an 81.143. Organizational profile 14.3, program design 31.9, program evidence 15.9, and budget 19.1. We'll now open it up for discussion on the Oasis proposal for counseling.
I'll go ahead. I felt the proposal was strong, but I felt like the need just was probably on the lower end for me on as far as spring children community. I know it's supporting the mental health of mothers, but when I asked her in the presentations if there was going to be a criteria for anybody entering the program, it was no, it's anyone, open to all. And so I feel like that community connection for highest needs just wasn't there for me.
The concern I had with them is the program outcomes. I just couldn't really understand exactly what is it that they are expecting to happen with the implementation of their program. And I see in the logic model that they have is these percentages here, but it just doesn't spell out enough for me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it's not an end game or it wasn't a goal to reach. And yeah, it was, I mean, it was a great proposal, but it's not an end.
Well, that was one of my high school. Because I believe that the fruit don't fall far from the tree. And as long as the tree is unhealthy, fruit shall not grow. And so I want to change my score on that one too.
Okay, I can go ahead and note that for you now if you like.
I want to change program design from 35 to 40.
That changes and everything.
I would like to change my score on the program design from 37 to 20.
That change is noted. I know that we jumped into changing scores, and if there's any additional comments, we can also have those now. If everyone had the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to sort of agree with Yolanda. I think that this is another one of those things where we have sort of two different kinds of programs. One is sort of the general one open to a broad group. Boys Town is to some extent in that it's sort of like everybody in the school, all the kids in the school. Counseling and legal services are very focused on an individual person with a need, but there's a huge need on mental health. I mean, I think we read about that like almost every day. And kids who are bullied in school, kids who are who are cut off from population, who've gone through COVID. And I just think that I rated this a little lower than the next one we'll come to, but because it's less direct. But I agree. I mean, if the mothers are the biggest single influence on their children in most families, and if you can sort of help them straighten out, I really think that has a big influence on all of their kids. And at Oasis, I mean, these are often domestic violence people. I also like the model. They're not. There's a lack of providers in the community, and they're basically trying to provide sort of after hours extra work to mental health counselors as opposed to hiring a whole bunch of people. So those were the things I liked, and I agree with you.
Any additional comments or revision to scores for tab 8? All right, seeing none, the new score with the revisions submitted is now a total of 556 with an average of 79.429. We'll now take up tab 8, which is the Oasis Center for Women and Girls, the second of 3 proposals. This one is focused on the Girls Circle. The overall score was a 594 with an average of an 84.857. Their scores for organizational profile 14.3, program design 34.6, program evidence 16.7, and budget 19.3. We will now open the floor for discussion on Girls Circle.
I ranked this one pretty high because I felt like there's organizational capacity. She fits the plan, and there was clearly a need there. I mean, mentioned school waiting list, and so I thought that the program design was nearly excellent, and so I ranked it pretty high.
Additional comments on Girls Circle?
I'll just echo that. I've actually seen them work with a program up in my hometown of Macon, and they're very effective. I think one of the Girls Circle members this year ended up as the valedictorian of the class or something. So, so I think it's a great way for the girls to sort of build a network outside the people they usually know. And I think that may be most important.
We don't have to make a comment, but I'm looking at you to give you the opportunity.
Hey, once again, I scored high on that. I believe, I believe that they have the capacity both to work with women and girls. And so that's definitely one of my highest scores. I absolutely think that a lot of energy, not only to women, but to girls in this community is very, very important. My number one highest score. So I appreciate that.
Based on this discussion, would anyone like to submit changes to their scores?
I would like to make a change for program evidence. I would like to change that from 15 to 17.
Your changes noted. Thank you, Ms. Austin. Any additional changes? With the one change noted, this brings the total score to a 596 with an average of an 85.143. We will now switch gears and invite our other committee members that were on our grassroots team. So if you'll just raise your hand so you can, everyone who hasn't been speaking before, right? Process of elimination, but just for the purposes of the records, great. So we will first start by taking up tab 4, which was the PACE Center for Girls. You'll note here that the 1 star, which is that they that 1 star that's noted on there is incorrect. They only applied for the 1 service line, so please strike that. There was only 1 submission from PACE Center for Girls. So I just wanted to note that so that I heard it's a clerical error on my part. So their overall score, so this is our grassroots category, or what we could call our more emerging. So they had a total score, again, that should be out of 700, not 500. 2 clerical errors to make on the final version. Their total score was a 638 with an average of a 91.14. For organizational profile, they had straight 15s. Program design average 37, program evidence average 19, program budget average 21. We'll now open it up for discussion on the PACE Center for Girls. And as a note, I should just, for those that might be listening, this is not for PACE Center, the regular, this is actually their REACH program. So the same way I mentioned for Carter's Corner that was 24/7 dad, this is specifically for the PACE model plus REACH, which is a specific program. Now the pressure's on y'all.
For me, very well presented. I appreciated the passion of the presentation, of the testimony of the one that was presenting. They seem to be well established and well organized. It was one of my highest scores because they presented results in what they do, and really incorporating that personal experience is what really drove me to really have a lot of buy-in to what they presented.
I second that. I scored them really as well. Their program design. Let's put this together.
Any additional comments from the reviewers? Would anyone like to revise their scores submitted? Hearing none, we will mark those as final, and we will now take up tab 2. This is the 3rd and final proposal from the Oasis Center for Girls. This is for their navigation program. They had an overall score of a 599 with an average score of an 85.57. Organizational profile was an average of 15. There. The program design was a 34, the program evidence an 18, the program budget a 19. Any Comments or questions, discussion on the Oasis Center for Girls Navigation Program? This is also the opportunity to help your other fellow folks know about the program, just as a side note.
Yeah, I mean, I rank them. I just think that the work that needs to be done in the community around that space is so important. And so
I think she presented it very well, that there was a need from all these agencies that said we need someone to help us navigate this situation. If someone comes to us and needs multiple services, not just one thing, we need to go here and here and here. We need someone to help with that process. I thought that was well explained.
Any additional comments on the navigation program? Based on the discussion, would anyone like to change their scores for number 10? Okay, we'll mark that one final and take up tab 11. This is Brownsville Preparatory Institute. They had an overall score of a 535, an average score of a 76.43. 14 for organizational profile, 32 on program design, 15 on program evidence, 15 on budget. We'll now open that up for discussion.
Yeah, so I'll start. I struggled with this one, and maybe someone can help me with this. My scores were pretty low for this one. You know, when I first heard about this, it's about literacy, it's about going into school and helping literacy rates, and it's something that's great. I just got the sense that the family strengthening part was like an add-on. It was just this is our focus, it's literacy. But to fit in this process, we're going to add on family support, and that'll qualify us for this program. That's the sense that we got. That's why I rated it as low as I did. Some of the issues that I had too with the program design was the population that they were trying to reach. They were saying we were going to offer services through telephone and through online, and we were going to do survey services. I struggled with how that all was going to work, how they were going to serve this population, do everything that you're going to do, and rely on people returning their phone call or going online and filling out a survey. And then on the budget part, it was the cost per youth was incredibly high compared to everything. That's almost $10,000 per youth. So I struggled with this one.
I just had a question about the budget that was would the council pay for a building, since the program was supposed to be at the schools. But in the budget, they had the cost for renting or building. I had a question about it.
So what we do in all awarded proposals is we do a budget allocation and go through to ensure that the costs that they are proposing to charge match up. So for example, if a program is community-based, but the office of the program is headquartered somewhere, so there is a rent associated with that office, there should be a proportional amount of whatever that total rent is that might be charged to all the different programs and all the different funders. So we would look at that as we validate to ensure that that percentage charge is in line. Does that make sense?
So for me, I scored this high because anytime you're speaking about education and how you're going to support that and the contentious climate that we have surrounding education, and the fact that they're teaching how to read at such a young age, to me, that contributes to strengthening the family, because the more education you have within a family, the more the dynamics will tend to gel better. So their efforts in continuing to expand their services of learning to read. Considering all that's going on in the political landscape of education and what people can read and what they cannot read. I just, when I saw this, I was all for that. Now, there's some logistical issues that I saw in the presentation, but overall, I think those could be worked out. But to grant funding to continuing their efforts in this area of literacy to the communities that really need it is why I scored so high. So I was completely sold on that.
I think I just struggled a little.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think I struggled also a little bit. The educational component, absolutely 100% need. But there was this, I guess in the conversation, there was a lot of discussion about being landlocked. And the point was to go to the community. But there was only one school that was really reported as far as who they were going to work with. And this is like a lot of money to just be working with that one school. It seems like there needed to be a broader scope, or and that could be because it's a smaller staff, I think, but I really had a problem with like the cost factor. You know, the per child cost is extreme to me, but if you're bringing in more children, then that would kind of like tackle that. So I think there's like, you know, sounded like a desire to really be more community involved, but yet a plan of action only really involved one school. So I think that was my concern.
Mine also, yeah, that was mine. I didn't know, is this a program that's gonna be from 8 to 5? Is this a program that's gonna be after school? What days? I didn't receive a lot of clarity on it for that amount of money.
Any additional comments about Brownsville? Sorry, tab 11.
I'll change my score to 30 to 22 on program design.
You said a 30 to a 32?
To a 22.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Program design from a 30 to a 22.
30 to a 22, that change is noted. Any other revisions for scores?
I'll change my budget from 22 to 24.
22 to 24, noted. Any other revisions to tab 11? Seeing none, with the two changes noted, this brings the total score to a 529 and an average score of a 75.57. We'll now take up tab 12. This is the Divine Healthcare Consulting LLC doing business as SG Mental Health Counseling. Their total score was a 552 with an average of a 78.86. Organizational profile was a 14 average. Program design average 32. Program evidence 15. Budget average 18. We'll now open discussion on tab 12.
I'll go first. I scored this program really high because I work with moms also, and working with mental health, especially in the Black community, is needed. And I thought their presentation was well presented, and it just seems like that they have the desire to working with these women. And I went to do my own little research, and I don't know if they had a lot of evidence, and I didn't see a whole lot of evidence. But when I went to, to research their Facebook, their social media handlers, you can just go back and you can see like all of the work that they've been doing in the community. And I think that they have made great strides. So this is why I scored them high.
I also kind of scored them high what the struggling part for me with the program evidence. And how they were able to show the effectiveness of what they're doing. I know, to me, I think their presentation, they kind of struggled in explaining the outcomes of what they're providing. But I do appreciate the work they do. They do the much needed work in mental health counseling that they're doing in minority communities. But my lowest score was on the program evidence. Didn't see too much of a quantitative or qualitative analysis of how of what they're doing and the effect that they're having on the community, even though they do have a lot of stories of success. And I think for me, I would like to have seen more of a numbers kind of presentation on evidence.
Any additional comments for tab 12?
Instead of a score change, I have, this is a mistype, but I have a 10 for organizational profile. That's supposed to be a 15.
Okay. I'm sorry, did I make that?
No, it was online.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know that. That change is noted. Additional comments or score changes to note for tab 12. Seeing none, with the one change submitted, that brings their total score to a 557 and their average score of a 79.57. We'll now take up tab 13. This is the Making Miracles group home. They had a total score of a 558, average score of a 79.71, 14 on their organizational profile, average of 32 for program design, average of 15 for program evidence, and 19 for their budget. We'll now open it up for discussion on Making Miracles group home.
I think they had a great presentation. She kind of showed her ability to scale and leverage. I mean, they almost threw paying for a house, an additional home for moms. And same with me, I went and reviewed, did my research for them also. And you can see the work that's being done in the community. And it's not as easy as to house a group of women. And these women are battered, they're pregnant. I think that additional funding is required. And if it's given, it's gonna make this program a success, especially with you guys, So that was my decision.
So this presentation to me just sold me on community. It made me want to live in that area. The warmness that you felt and the passion in the presentation of the services that they're providing is what got me. Once again, my score, the struggling part of the score for me was program evidence. I think they're going to need some direction on how to measure their successes. They're definitely having an impact, and definitely to me, that work should continue and bring communities together. Purchasing a home the way they are at such a rapid pace, especially in this market, is commendable. But once again, how do you encapsulate that into data and showing that this is working for these mothers? But very passionate, very warm, and I was all for that.
And I want to address something. I would like to say this because I see that, especially in the minority communities, we're not taught to how to start a business. We're not taught to how to scale and how to leverage a business. We're not taught the fundamentals of putting these organizations together. So I think that what's required, if you're basing or judging two different organizations on their structure and on their evidence and just their program stability, paper sometimes isn't going to do it because a lot of people in the minority community don't understand the verbiage, the vernacular. They can't put it into terms, but when you go and you see that the work is being done in the community, it's commendable. So I think that their actions within the community reflect their love, their patience. All they need is guidance. So that's my little spiel.
Mhm. Thanks for sharing. So just for our public audience or those who may see this afterward, that is why we added a presentation component and
Absolutely.
are even looking at how we refine the processes, incorporating the presentation so that you have not only the paper application, you as in our evaluators have not only the paper application, but also a presentation from them on their programs. I also will use this opportunity to plug our technical assistance and capacity building services. So we do offer that with each application cycle. And it can be used if you think you're going to apply. So it doesn't have to be just in addition with an application, but if you think you'd like to apply for our funding, those services are available. So I just wanted to, again, we say it all the time, but wanted to again let our public know that we view all of these organizations that are providing services in a space for children, youth, and families as partners, whether they are funded partners at the time, future funded partners, never funded partners, because we all have to work together. So I did want to just reiterate that as a feedback to your poignant comment.
And I'll boring us back up. For tab 13. Any score revisions that we want to note for the record?
I like to increase my program design to 37.
Can you identify what your original score was and what your
33.
Like which one's him? Can you tell us which 33?
What did you give for program evidence? That'll help us.
Yeah.
I gave 15 for program.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you very
okay.
much.
Awesome.
All right, so
Me
your 33 has, instead of putting initials, we were requested to just number, because that's what was part of the promise. So identifying who's who. All right. Okay, any additional?
Can I actually comment on it?
Yeah.
So I don't mean to be kind of buzzkill with this comment, but I really fundamentally don't believe that we should be funding at churches. And, you know, it is a tough line in communities about when is it part of an organized religion and when is it part of, you know, legitimate nonprofit work, and when does a nonprofit, a C3 organization start, and when does, you know, the 506 church organization start. But I just really couldn't get a coherent answer about where those boundaries were when applied to this own applicant. It wasn't really clear to me to what extent we were sort of subsidizing church employees, or to what extent there was sort of this commingling of assets and funding. And that is what it concerns me about them as an applicant.
Say families or.
Which one? Church. Which one?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're gonna say family. Okay, we'll move. Okay,
Whoa, wait.
I am.
Okay.
Okay.
Be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't moved to tab 14 yet. So tab 13, Making Miracles group on where we're still at.
Okay, church.
No additional revisions or comments around tab 13? With the one change noted, it takes this total score to a 562, giving them an average of an 80.29. Now we'll take up tab 14, Safe Families for Children Alliance. This one should have a star next to it because they did submit a second proposal for youth mentoring. So again, sorry for the clerical errors on the cover sheet. It's on this one. Yeah, it's on this big one, but I didn't put it on this one. I didn't do it. That said, their total score was a 526 with an average of 75.14. Organizational profile average 14. Program design an average of 31. Program evidence average of 14, and their program budget, average of 17. We'll now open it up for discussion on Safe Families for Children Alliance.
I think on this one, this is where I struggled with the church. Part of it, deciphering where they just using churches, and I understand that because it's like this perfect location to have children and work with children and that sort of thing, but it's like all of their work is church-based. And differentiating that is very tricky. It is. So although the answer was, well, it's open to everyone. However, it is really church focused because churches have been the ones who have really supported the program. They were able to do a lot of recruitment through the church. So I just really had a struggle a little bit with that part of it. If we're looking at it to be, and don't get me wrong, because my organization started as a church. So I understand that part, and I understand how challenging it is to really present the differentiation and the segmenting of it, to demonstrate the fact that no money is spent for this, no money is spent for that, or all money is spent for this. So I don't think it was just really made clear to me that there is this strong differentiation of the two.
And for me, it was diversity and inclusion. I didn't see enough of that.
Yeah, I didn't either. The explanation, I believe, was just maybe a 1 or 2 sentence response to who's involved in the work and what faith communities, participate in, how they're reached out to. And so wasn't really clear on the response or the answer. Anybody can do it. We reach out to all. So maybe more clarification on that from the diversity aspect. And also, and I appreciate the comments about involving the church, and it can get pretty tricky whenever you're applying for funding and you're involving faith communities, because how does that look and how is that demonstrated? So I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, and I think the same applies to both of the applicants. I mean, we are up here playing American Idol, right? We are here with public money, and I do think it has a little bit of a different application here, but I definitely agree with your comments.
Any additional comments related to tab 14? Would anyone like to submit a revision to their score?
I'd like to drop the program design. I have it at a 33. I'd like to drop that down to a 26.
Your change is noted. Thank you. Any additional score revisions? Seeing none, this brings a new total for tab 14 at 519 with an average score of a 74.14. Did I? 33 to 26. So this actually brings us to the first part of our agenda kind of done, but I want to remind everyone who made a revision to a score to please document it on your score sheet, your individual one that has your little name at the bottom. Also, you'll notice the comments that were published on your document. Those will be part of the permanent record, as you'll kind of see in both of these. They're numbered with the score. So whoever scored 1, you'll see their comments 1, etc. If you want to make revisions to those comments, you want to add something, you want to strike something. I think I did already. If there was like a typo, I made like I did correct typos, so you don't have to worry about correcting those. But when you do return that final score sheet, it will need to have anything noted for changes and then the sign next to your name. And then our team will collect those from you. And then we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Take a quick break. Nobody else needs one, but I do.
Okay, so while you finish that, we will take a pause, a break. Restrooms are through the main door to the right. We do have coffee and snacks and drinks right over there, and then we will dive into the hard part of the process. Oh, yeah, hold on one moment.
So we are pausing, the recording. Excuse me, everybody. I'm sorry. That's okay. We're pausing the recording. So please don't have any conversations about what we're doing with each other until we get back on the record.
So we're not pausing the recording, we're muting.
Yeah, we're muting.
I want to be like super transparent, but it is, the same rule applies. And we are,
And we will.
maybe back broadcast, maybe? Oh,
A lot going on.
and we are back broadcasting. Thank you everyone for turning in your sheets. Now I will say the fun, difficult part, that we will do. Next on our agenda is the appointment of a team lead. So this individual would commit to working with staff to formalize whatever the recommendation that the whole committee brings to close, as well as kind of helping us to facilitate that discussion currently and to agree, if possible, to attend the June 15th meeting to present the recommendation to council on behalf of the entire team.
What time is June 15th?
4 p.m., June 15th, 4 p.m. here at this office.
So if you are available on June 15th and you feel comfortable taking on that role, we will entertain a motion to kind of nominate, or maybe if we want to do by a show, like who's available, who's interested.
Who wanna do it?
Right, everybody, yeah.
I'll nominate Yolanda.
Yeah. I second that. But we have a motion and a second for Ms. Forshore. Any discussion? All in, I'll say all in favor?
It's a landslide.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so now what we will do, Ms. Yolanda, thank you for agreeing to this. What I would encourage everyone to do is to take out this sheet of paper. That's going to show everyone their asks, their proposed numbers, the kind of cost per use, the stars that are noted on there so that you have that for reference. I also will bring back up on the screen kind of those final scores that we landed at. The ultimate recommendation in terms of what we come up to is, in an ideal world, you will come up with a recommendation that does not exceed a total request of 2.4. That's like because that's what's been allocated. In the division between the two groups, our commitment was the majority of funds will go to those that were deemed research supported. And but what that majority means can be defined by the group. We're not beholden to a 70-30 split. It could be a 51-49. It technically could be a 50.5 to a 49.5. We are available with our calculators and our computer to help do any of that work for you. But ultimately, that is the desire that the majority of the funds go to the tabs that are on the research supported one versus the other. And that collectively between the two, that it does not exceed 2.4. The other thing that I just want you to keep in mind that while you have your scores to guide you, you are not beholden to only selecting for recommendation the top scores. There can be other factors that you do consider. And then the final thing that I will also put out there is that if none of these, or you do not have to spend 2.4. In fact, you don't have to spend any. If you do not feel that any of the proposals before you meet those expectations, one of the recommendations that you could say is to reject all of the proposals in its current form and re-advertise for more, if that's something that you should choose to do. So just kind of a recap. Whatever you propose, you don't have to spend all of the 2.4, but you should not go over it. The majority of the funds should come from those that are in the research supported category. You get to set that threshold. And the last and final thing is you don't have to solely rely on the scores. There can be a combination of factors for you to consider. With that, any questions about the procedure of formulating a recommendation?
Just for clarity, a total of 2.4 for both groups.
That is correct. So you'll see in total, there was 4.5 in total request. Total allocated is 2.4. So it's going to be very hard on you guys.
Are you going to put I'm not sure I've got all the scores as changed correctly.
Sure.
Are you going to put those up or can you?
So
read
yeah.
them off?
That's a great, let's review those very quickly.
If I may add, and since you all have chosen Ms. Porchot to be your leader. She's going to work with us to kind of guide you through this process. Given the kind of 3 areas that Holly has delineated, it may be best to decide which of the areas you want to tackle first. So for example, one of your choices is to reject all. Maybe you start there and see if that's a desire. Your next choice is to decide what your percentages are. Then maybe you start there so you kind of know what you're dealing with in each section. Then you can go into your discussion. That is my offer of a suggestion. But you may, and we will help guide you through whatever you decide to do.
Well, thank y'all for this new job.
So to clarify, to Mr. Skeen's question, I'm gonna read off the revised scores. We're gonna start with family strengthening research supported. Tab 1, Boys Town Lift Program, 82. Tab 2, Carter's Corner 24/7 Dads, 81.786. Tab 3, Legal Services of North Florida, 80.714. Tab 8, the Oasis Center for Women Counseling Program, 79.429. Tab 9, Oasis Center for Girls Circle, 85.143. I'm now going to transition to your grassroots score sheet. Tab 4, Pace Center for Girls, the REACH program, 91.14.
That's not good.
Tab 10, Oasis Center for Girls Navigation, 85.57. Tab 11, Brownsville Preparatory Institute, 75.57. Tab 12, Divine Healthcare Consulting, DBA SG Mental Health, 79.57. Tab 13, Making Miracles Group Home, 80.29. Final tab 14, Safe Families for Children Alliance, 74.14. I'm going to just remind you that we're purposely keeping these 2 separate in terms of the scores. So we're not at any point in our process going to combine the 2 and show them, since the reviewers were in fact different. Sure. That's okay. So at this point, in terms of taking the suggestions that Sika provided, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Porchot to kind of like lay out any visions to help facilitate the conversation. I will also help kind of keep an eye on who raises their hands to make sure that everyone has a voice.
So, first of all, once again, thank you all for this opportunity. I'm guessing we're gonna vote on whether or not we want to reject all of them first based on your, is that what you're talking about? Or
If that's what you would like to do.
so we go, it sounds like you want to say something. So you want to say something before we do that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So let me ask this though, if the vote to reject, like it got to be a consensus, right? So,
It would have to be a majority.
Whatever recommendation should be a recommendation by consensus in the RFA itself. If you read the procurement and how it outlines what recommendation, it will be a recommendation by consensus. So that is our goal today. It's not a majority rule, it is a consensus.
Sorry.
So that is your job before you as a group to reach something that you all feel comfortable with and agree consensus based to move forward.
Okay, well, if you want to do a vote, I mean.
So is everybody okay with voting? Do y'all want to talk about the possibility of rejecting everything, or can we just?
So can I, so I'm just go ahead and put what out, you know what I mean, like when I stand there.
Okay.
I will support 2, 3, 4, 10, 12, and 13.
Okay, so can we talk about whether, so that kind of means that we're not gonna reject all. Can we mark that off? Is everybody like, yeah, we're gonna, something?
Yeah, I mean, nobody has discussed doing the reject all. Nobody has anyone has any interest in doing a reject all.
No.
No.
Off the table.
So
I can-
that's off the table.
Every time that we do this,
Yeah.
a proposal that
Right.
is always discussed amongst our RFP or an IC and any of that stuff. Okay, so that's off the table. Now,
So I would like to see if we could talk about percentage wise, what things look like and if the percentages match our desire for funding.
So I get that we looking at the percentage. And I don't really think the percentages does the service to the community any justice with some of these programs.
So I need to interrupt you just really quickly, because the council, while the council did not vote on a percentage, the council did vote and approve that the majority of the funding would go to evidence, research supported evidence based. So your decision should not be contrary to that. And again, as Holly said, it could be 51% evidence resource, 49%. It could be 50.5%, 49.5%, but you cannot go against what the council, that would create a whole different set of issues if you did that.
So can I suggest that
Yes.
one way to maybe expedite this or bring a little bit of order to the scope of ideas that we're discussing is, I think that there's some unanimity in some of the ones we don't want to fund. So maybe if we could just take a couple ones off the table, that doesn't mean that everyone that we don't take off the table will get funded. But for example, in the group that I was part of, I don't think any of us really have any interest in funding, say, Families for Children Alliance. And so if we just took that off the table, but we're down 100,000. Is there any easy kind of ones that you all feel like you'd like to?
That's up to you. You all decide how you want to come to.
So that's what I think our issue is, to decide how we're going to decide, right? Because we could go with the lowest or we could go with the highest percentages. Because we voted on the highest percentages. It wasn't like it came out of the sky. We all cast our votes.
But even then, even looking at like, for instance, what's Boys Town score?
82.
Boys Town score is 82, but all of us really got an issue with Boys Town. Listen to the conversation. You feel what I'm saying? Like, so it's kind of like, I don't know if we look at the total percent and stuff and rank them as far as who get the highest 1, 2, 3, because I mean,
How would you suggest we rank them then?
So for instance, like at the end of the day, in our group, I'm just gonna speak in our group. In our group, if listening to us talk this morning, we need legal services. That's the aspect we need. None of us was really sold on 8 and 9. We had issues with that. We had issues with 1. And I think number 2 is a toss-up. You know what I'm saying, with the conversation that we had, but I think everybody is okay with it. You know what I'm saying? So right there, like it was 3 of them that I wouldn't even support in our group.
Well, yeah,
I think if we have the scores and they are a useful starting point. And I think if we were to say, let's start with a line somewhere on both of them and then start to see before we start allocating money. So I mean, if we were to say, let's drop from discussion anything below 80. That drops 1 or 2 off of each one. And then we sort of get a rank order. I think that in general, my sense was that the scores on the Grassroots one were higher. So that's probably not, you can't just blend them, but it does start to say, what do we try to do with with each category, and how far down do we want to go with each one? I don't particularly agree that I didn't have a problem with Boys Town, so I mean I sort of disagree with Mr. Whitfield on that, but Mr. Leland, I'm sorry, I still do the same thing as he. So I mean I think we might look at start with numbers but without saying we're committed to that. At the end, we can come back and say, is there any exception we want to make? We want to move somebody up because the score is not the sole, we don't have the right mix, we don't have something else that the scores doesn't have.
And one thing I think just based on head nodding that we also can be on the same page on is that we're not going to be married to the percentage. Because I think that, look, somebody's got to be subjective in this process. Staff was only so subjective, the council only got to be so subjective. So this is the kind of place to express preference.
But is there any difference really between 80 and 81, like 79.5 and 80?
I think it's important to talk about the highest score. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Nothing.
So I am, just for points for everything, I am dropping the scores onto the same sheet, so it's right next to the amount of money. Because I think what I hear you saying is that scores do matter, but they're not the be all end all, but maybe let's start there and see how the money shakes out. So I just wanted to bring your attention to, I am putting that up there, and now I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure that all of our comments, we got to be able to hear them on the record.
Okay.
And so what we will commit to do, Holly and I are going to commit to kind of help you recognize who would like to speak.
Okay.
Let me say this. The conversation can go off in a lot of different ways. So you all have to decide how you want to approach it. And I think that's where you are now. So once you decide how you want to approach it, then each piece should fall in place after that.
I just have a question.
What's your question?
Well, okay, so we're supposed to say, for instance, Boys Town, North Florida, requesting $1 million. Do we want to provide 50%, or do we think that they should, how are we going to?
You approve it. When you approve it, you're approving the amount that they requested.
Gotcha, okay.
Is this only for our categories or is it for also, because I didn't see the other proposals.
This 2.4 is for these two categories, grassroots and research supported. You don't have to worry about mentoring. We had it there so you could see some of the organizations had applied in all three, or we also wanted to let you know which of the applicants were approved for funding for this summer funding that we've done. But 2.4 is what has been allocated for grassroots and research, with the requirement that the majority of the funding go to research support.
The majority could be 52%.
It could be 52, it could be 50.5, it could be, but it should be the majority.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now what you just said made this a lot clearer. So we will not make any adjustments to the totals that were requested. Okay, so that made, okay, so then now that brings clarity on how the process is supposed to go. Okay.
May I offer one additional tool that I just want to show you guys on the screen? This is just a recommendation. If you were to start with points and you, for each group, that's the highest point, that's the highest point. I've kind of dropped through, let's just say that they got funded. That would bring your total to that overall. And I can add in subscores so that we can check that percentage. And then that gives you, that's how much is left over to still allocate.
I like that.
That's a good.
I like math, that's spreadsheets.
I was cutting from the bottom, but you top, sorry. at the top.
Yeah.
I just figured that if we went through our review process for a reason, so I just want to say that when it comes to math and making the decisions, I'm available to show math to you.
Does everybody understand what you just did? Are we all on the same page? I thought that
She
was
took the top from
really.
each category. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we can all come back at the end and say, oh, it doesn't work, but as a way of getting started, I think that makes sense.
So what are the biggest kind of pillars of issue here? Really, is probably that Boys Town is $1 million. Is that there's 3 applications for the Oasis Center, and there's a couple that are pretty large, like Brownsville, and legal services. But I mean, do you guys want to talk about kind of the biggest subjects first in terms of money?
I wish that we would at least talk a little bit about there wasn't that much space between the 85, but the 85 stood out a little bit. Does it reflect in any way a narrowing down for us?
When I look at this, I'm not necessarily looking at the points, because the points kind of put y'all, everybody in this, maybe, with those two highest points, everybody else, you round out the map, we get around in the same neighborhood. What I'm looking at is the programs that we'll be able to put on the street as far as together wise. You know what I'm saying? Like, I only see one legal services up there. We need that. Like, if they need those services, maybe I may not disagree with how it was rolled or how it came to us, but that's something that we feel like we need. At the bottom, where the mental health, we feel like we need mental health. Even though we feel like we need mental health, but they only scored 79, but everybody else scored 85, 91, 80, that automatic. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think we really necessarily beat the scores. We need to figure out the services as a whole and how they come together with how we push it out.
Yeah, but
How about, let's go around and let's start with Boys Town. Who's on for Boys?
Well,
That one.
And then we can break it up
let's see if hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let's see if everybody's willing to do, I think this suggestion is worth hearing. Let's see if we're willing to go around.
Yeah,
to see where we're at.
I agree.
Where we are on each of these.
Really
That
not
gives
that
us some
complicated.
data
Yeah.
instead of just going around circular.
Yeah.
I like the idea. Are we?
I'm halfway there, but I don't feel comfortable voting on the other proposals that I had, I didn't get enough context
Yeah,
from the
okay.
exchange.
Oh, no, that's
So maybe we-
just
so,
like, I'm comfortable
we could
with
split it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could split it.
So I'd like to make that point of clarity.
That's-
That part of the reason why we had the open discussion was so that you could consider, you don't have to necessarily vote, but that you could consider the other services available as you're making your priority kind of suggestion. So my question to Ms. Shorter would be, in this suggestion, are you saying, are you voting on your number one priority
Yeah.
for your, so
Yeah.
if you, so it's not just that, oh, I
No,
support
no,
that,
right.
So
Yeah.
first round is number one support.
Right.
Can we do a diagnostic?
Okay,
price?
hold on. Because we will be here all night, and I know you guys don't want to be here all night. I'm gonna go back to my first suggestion. So if you all are deciding you're going to break this up, you're gonna have the research supported evaluators. And we have some evaluators missing, right?
There's two, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna have the research supported evaluators say what their number one priority is, because you can only get a certain number of votes to make it equal, number one. So do you understand what I'm saying?
So we don't have to have one process this is like a jury duty. We're just kind of seeing where everyone's at and I don't think we have to make a process here that's like the end of the discussion.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Where we're at, right?
Okay, Max, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I'm hearing it going in all these various different directions. And I just don't want to get you all to get so caught up in all these different directions. At the end of the day, you've got to land on a process by which you make your recommendation. And I've heard about 5 different processes in the last 10 minutes. So I'm just trying to guide that. I am just trying to guide that process and empower the leader that you all chose to be able to give some direction on what you're going to,
Okay,
how you're
I'd
going
like
to.
to make-
Before we do that though, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's okay, but I want us to recognize each other. Let's just not yell out.
Yeah.
Let's raise our hand and we're gonna try to recognize you so everybody gets to speak.
So we've gone through a lot of discussion. We may have been in separate groups or whatever, but today we actually came up with numbers that we can use. That's the most objective way, I think, to start the process, because if we go around saying, Oasis, yay, I'm all for Oasis, okay? However, look at the scores. If we use the scores, we can decide based on the scoring Because we all said, these are the scores that we were going to present. So if we be objective about it, take away emotions, feelings, knowledge, or whatever, and use the numbers, then we can move forward. And then maybe we can get into a more
concur.
discussion of, if the funding, is limited or what have you. Because going around, mine's gonna be what the numbers are.
Okay, hold on. Yes,
Can we
Yolanda.
get a sense, just based on what can we get a sense of how we feel as a group about what she just said? Is everybody, let's see, raise your hand if you feel okay about that.
Like you can just resort them by
Yeah.
percentage and so you can see.
So that's not.
Yeah.
That's the majority, that's not all of us.
Yeah, it's not-
Yeah, sure.
So my thought is that we do the opposite of what we just did, that Holly's suggestion, which is sort of tentatively remove those below 80 because it takes out the bottom. It takes out the bottom as well as sort of committing to the top. That's our objective. I agree with absolutely. This is the most objective thing we've got that bridges both of the groups. If we tentatively drop off the other two, now we've got a narrower set that we can start to decide, is there some reason to vary from the point score?
But is there any real difference between 79.4 and 80.7?
Yeah, there is.
There's no-
We voted. And I
Yeah,
think,
it's
I mean,
not-
it's not a big difference, but I mean, I would have loved to see Oasis Counseling supported, but it's below 80. I'm saying that's off the table for me. Because that's where the group is. And I think that,
Okay,
Okay, yes.
Just because I like to, I'm a visual person, I like to see it. So I was just doing the numbers. So again, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just throwing it out there. So I've been a part of the CHSP process for 7 years. This is what happens every single time. We go back and forth trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Obviously, our intention is to support more of the research-based. So I just wanted to show you, if you took because Boys Town is just, it's a lot of money. Yeah. If you took them out and you supported the other 4, and then you supported the top 2 from the Grassroots, you're almost there at the $2.4 million. Right, you're kind of using that same subjective, we're looking at the scores, we're looking at that kind of that 80 threshold to cut things off. If you did that, I mean, that's essentially what you're doing, because the bottom scores on the Grassroots were, other than making miracles.
Again, which ones you're saying is hypothetical?
So it would be Oasis Center and then the Oasis. So yeah, you're at 2.4.
so if you
You're
look at column
35,000.
B,
You're $35,000 over.
you can see, so what Holly did, she put in the numbers for what he just said, so you could see the numbers.
$35,000 over our allocation. And if we're using the same techniques we're all talking about, we're looking at the numbers that we've all allocated. And unfortunately for Boys Town, yeah, their number is higher, but I think it's a significant portion of the budget, and it's all or nothing.
May I do just want to point out one point that at a total request amount of 1.092, that if you were to apply that same logic, Oasis Center is about 1.5 million.
Right.
So just think that if that's the logic, I'm just gonna come down to making sure that you justify every decision that you make, that if you're gonna toss someone out because their budget's too high, just consider that.
Just
In
again,
terms of justification.
to show you that we're right there at the line.
But at the end of the day, too.
Oh, we're speaking out of turn. Who's next?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just as maybe one simple request, can we just take one off then? Can we just start kind of eliminating the possibilities? I mean, so it sounds like we want to have kind of a little bit of a sidebar with our own groups. Within my group, is there anyone who is opposed to just eliminating the possibility of Safe Families for Children Alliance? Okay, so maybe we can return to it if anyone wants to, but are we just eliminating that possibility? Because they would fall within. Or no, they wouldn't have, they would have not fallen out of that category. Well, is there anyone else from our group that we want to eliminate the possibility of, that anyone feels like there was? Anyone have?
Did you get consensus on eliminating safe families?
I think so, I was looking around, I
consensus.
didn't. Does anyone have?
Yeah, we gotta spend this money. How are we gonna move forward?
So your question is, your question coming to all of us, or are you talking to your team?
To our group,
Okay,
yeah, if anyone would be opposed to just eliminating the possibility of funding for tab 14, Safe Families for Children Alliance, so that we can make, less decisions about to freeze up money so that we can.
Gonna have to make hard decisions.
You are.
They scored low, so yes, they scored low,
They did.
they scored low, so.
Whitford, or Hubbard.
Yes.
Like, so since we not where, this is where I'm at, and then I'll let y'all have a conversation. I ain't gonna say that. I'm at 2, 3, 4, 10, 12, 13. That's who I support. And outside of that, y'all, you can do one.
But look,
those where I don't.
If this is how this is gonna have to end, y'all, it's gonna have to end. And so I think we need to start thinking in those terms.
Hold on a second, that's right, let's gotta get something, excuse me, I think. Pardon me. We do have to get something, even if we have to do a blind vote or something, we've gotta get moving here. So I think the biggest thing we have to figure out is how we're going to move forward. Can I finish, please, sir? To see how we can move forward in this process. And one of the things I would like clarity on is, are we dividing the votes between the sections, or are all of us going to vote on everything? Okay, so
You ideally.
can we get,
Hold on, Yolanda.
okay, go ahead.
Ideally, or not ideally, because it is one category. The recommendation comes from all of you. So I would be careful, I would be careful about doing too much segmenting. To Holly's point, the reason why all of you were here to hear how the scores shook out, if you wanted to change people's comments, their feelings, was so you could get an idea of the other category. So the recommendation comes from all of you. So I would caution too much separation.
I would like to make a recommendation. I would like to recommend that each of us in our private space write our top 3 from both lists. And let's go around and see what we got. I would, hold on a second, I want us to really consider that and see if we can move
I think that's a
forward.
great starting place.
Let's start with those.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
I'll do it.
There's a motion.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
All in
Write
favor of
our
the
top
motion,
3.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay, whoa, wait.
I have my hand.
We got a question here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Take the question, then we can come back to what Yolanda's suggestion was.
Okay, is it possible for us to see what the numbers are when we take all of the 70s out?
So up on your screen right now.
Hold on, quick.
She's asking to see it.
Yes, hold on. So with that, once we do that, you need to go back to what Yolanda's recommendation was, and you all make a decision on whether you want to do that or do something different.
Okay,
Okay?
I just want to see what those numbers.
Okay, so now I'm sorry.
And so do I understand that number? Is that what I was
So
suggesting?
that's what I was gonna say, that,
That's a total of 3 million?
right, so this is how much you would need to remove
Okay.
to get to where we want to get to. If that were where we started, so just, so you have that now. I can put them back up, so I removed everything that was below an 80. Everything. Okay, at the request. So I can put them back in, and now we'll go back to, do you want to do it blind, or do you want me to record as people verbalize them?
I don't think we can do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can you just do your top 3 and let's see if we have anything in common here.
The question from Hubble.
Yes,
I don't, since y'all doing recommendation, I wanna, put a motion on the table.
So we're in the middle of the motion,
We're in the
that's actually
middle of
answered. So it's okay, we can hold that, right, but we have
But
a
I'm saying
motion
she
on the
moved
table.
it
Okay.
and back to
Right, so we're now in, so are there any discussion on the current motion on the table before we take up another one?
Okay, how about,
So we have a motion and a second. We're gonna go into the process unless there's a question about the process.
The
of this.
the motion on the table is to have everyone, take a moment, write the top three, and then we'll go around in a circle and then
Yeah.
try to get some insight,
Okay.
and we'll do it on a group by group basis.
So,
So, any discussion?
for our group,
Just for you.
Yeah.
For you?
No.
Yeah.
No, for the whole team.
Me.
It could be across all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think we'll do it in order of groups. Say first group.
Go around the table.
No.
Ask Mr. Hurley, the recommendation that you all need to vote like verbally, aye or nay. It's been moved and seconded that each of you write your top three of all the applicants.
Okay.
One out of 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 4, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 on a piece of paper. And then we will tally those scores. So that is the motion and the second. You all need to vote yay or nay. So Yolanda, I'll turn it back over to you to conduct that vote.
Okay. All in favor of writing your top three? Say
Aye.
aye. Okay, opposed? All right, let's do it.
All right, so let's take the next couple of minutes.
We all need a meeting.
Okay.
So Madam Leader, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
let's take the next 3 minutes for everyone to write their top three of all the applicants
Yes.
on a piece of paper. And we will get that from you and tally.
Yeah.
Do we need to go around?
Yeah.
They wanna do it.
I would prefer you to not give it to anybody.
Yeah,
That
keep
creates
it
a
to
public
yourself.
record, so we'll just go around and you just verbally say that, please.
the top three, okay.
Yeah, when the chair.
No, it's fine.
The top three we want.
Yes.
Okay.
Your top three.
The top three we want.
I think it's just. Let's just see how it shakes out.
Right.
Yeah.
We have plans to have it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, guys, 2 minutes. Put a timer on. Everybody done? I'm still, we're counting down. We got a minute and 6:14, but I don't want to keep going if everybody's feeling okay. So I will use this time to encourage each of you to go back to your communities, neighborhoods, churches, sororities, fraternities, community groups, and families to encourage them to sign up to be an evaluator. It is not a job to be taken lightly, and it is vitally important that the community be a part of the decisions that are made. And so we expect that you will leave this experience and go back and say, that was tough, and I encourage all of you to do it.
That's right. We're telling them to run in the opposite direction. No, I agree.
15 seconds.
Right.
Madam Chair, would you like us to call a roll when the time comes?
Yes, please.
All right, is everybody done? All right, that's time.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Clay is gonna call your name You are gonna say out loud, number one, this one, number two, this one, number three, this one. We realize that that is not necessarily your ranking order, but just your top three.
Right? Donna Austin.
Okay. I'm calling it by numbers or by name?
Either or.
Okay. I'm sorry, 13. 2. And 9.
Thank you.
Raquel Narrows.
Oasis Girls Circle, Legal Services, and Carter's Corner.
Thank you.
Whitfield Leland.
I'm gonna have a top three.
We all,
We agree, you have to give us
top three, please.
hold on. Your colleagues agreed that that is how you would do it. So we have to get a top three from each person. Let's go to the next person and give Mr. Leland a chance to think. Next.
Yolanda Porchel.
The one is the 9, the Oasis Girls Circle, 2 is 8, the counseling, and 3 is making a miracle, which is 13.
Thank you.
Neil Skeen.
Number 1 is 1, number 2 is 9, number 3 is 4.
Thank you.
Mary Diallo.
13, Making Miracles. 2, Carter's Corner. 3, Divine Healthcare, number 12. So that's 13 to 12.
Thank you.
Corbin Denegi.
9, 4, and 10.
Thank you.
Max Hurley.
The Oasis Center, number 10, navigation. Number 12, Divine Healthcare, number 4, Pace Center.
Thank you.
Dr. Lenny Marshall.
2, 11, and 13.
Thank you.
Bernice McMillan.
4, 13, and 9.
Thank you.
Denise Shorter. 9, 4, and 13.
Thank you.
Whitfield Leland.
For the record, I don't have a top three. But if I had, it would be 2, 12, and 13.
Okay, if you, your top scores based on this process are number 9, number 13, number 4, number 2. Give me just a moment, I will show that on your screen.
9, 13.
She gave 4. She gave
I gave the top 4.
She gave the top 4.
Yeah, so
The
that's
top 4.
yeah, 9, 13,
4.
4, and 2.
You all chose the top 3, but she's gonna show you the top 4 from what you all picked from your vote.
Based on your numbers, I just want to point out 3 things. One is that you've spent 1.5, so we can go to that next level. Currently you're at 1.5. You have 884 left to be allocated, but you'll see that your split is inversed. So you have a 40-60 split the wrong way.
Okay.
So I will turn it, I can add the next, if we were to go down to the next level, that would bring in. I would just for the points, the next highest scoring was number with 3 points was number 12. So just wanted to.
Could you repeat the top 4 again?
Sure. The top 4 chosen is number 9 with 7 points and number 13 with 7 points. Those are your 2 top scorers for the 2 groups. The next
to change.
The next level. Let me finish the question. Yeah. The next level was with 5 points, number 2, Carter's Corner, and number 4, Pace Center for Girls.
can we put the points in
Yeah.
column I? Let's do that. Put all the points in column I, and then you all can see what the total of the points were. What the total of the points are.
And
These
again,
are equal weighted points.
Everybody got,
Everybody voted.
Yeah, I mean, my third choice counts the same as the first choice.
That's
Yeah,
And I think that's right. We should look at this as just a way to see the consensus in the group. And we do see consensus here, right? Look at these numbers are pretty clear.
The 7s and the 5s,
Right.
I would say.
so what she did was she added the totals for the top 4 of what you picked. So with the top 4, you're at 1.5 million
Okay.
and change. With 884,000 and change that can be allocated. The problem is you are lopsided in that the majority of the funding is in grassroots, and that has to be flipped to be in line with what the council approved. I want to be sure that I
What
say
if
that.
should be resolved if, like, hypothetically, I'm not advocating this, but if Boys Town got funded, that would be fixed, the percentages, the breakdowns, right?
Okay, we're back.
Guys, I forgot to delete one. Number 10 was included in that and it should not have been. So that's your new number.
Oh. 3, 4, okay,
So we're
so
actually-
you're at 1 million.
How much unspent?
So right now, with the 4, we had a mistake. You're at 1 million, because we're not perfect, you know? You're at 1 million and you have 1.3 to spend. The top ones from your choices were 13, 4, 9, and 2.
So, Madam Chair, can I just offer up that maybe we could, I'd like to make a motion, if there's interest in it, to just have this be the floor of conversation, so we can just get past funding these groups, then we can just talk about the remaining billion. But what does everyone think about that as a process?
So wait a minute, Max has made a motion that this be the floor. So in other words, what his motion is saying is that these 4 you absolutely will fund, and then other discussion would be on top of that. That's basically what he's saying. So he has made that motion, seconded by Leland. Madam Chair. Question?
Any discussion about this?
So we're funding the top 4.
As
No,
the base.
as the base.
Okay.
That's the bold-faced ones that are up there now.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Take those
so,
off of the question and you can take us, take a vote.
And so, say the motion again.
It would be to,
Just locking these in.
yeah,
Max, let me suggest that you say what you want to say.
yeah.
Word your motion the way you want to say.
So it would be to, for the purposes of coming to a consensus, agreeing to fund the bold ones as a result of this top poll we did. And then we will discuss for the remainder of today, how to allocate the remaining $1 million.
okay, so we need a second and
That was Mr. Wheeler.
That was
seconded. Anybody want to discuss this? Are you ready to vote on it? All right, all in the favor, say aye. Opposed?
No.
All
Okay,
right.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You didn't reach consensus.
Wait. What do you mean?
Consensus is for the recommendation.
Oh,
You can- you
okay, I thought you had to use
no,
the whole process, my bad,
No.
okay. So it passed.
I would at least like to hear what,
Yeah.
her objection was.
What an objection after it's closed?
I mean, you can.
Oh,
I just.
Okay,
So if he wants to give a reason,
he can, if he doesn't, he doesn't have to.
Oh, you opposed?
I opposed. I said, I voted no.
But I'm.
So we have everybody left. We have
No.
1.3 million left.
Okay,
So next phase for this next wave, do you want to go highest numbers? Do you want to go a different way? What is the next recommendation for the remaining
the
1.3?
remaining
Can you tell us the total amount?
We are at 1.016 funded with a remainder of 1.3 million.
Is it exactly 1.3?
It's
Yes,
1.383666074.
this is how much,
That's okay.
this is how much you've approved, 1.016 million.
And up to
listen, let's get attention, You've got 1.383 left to fund. Right now, you have funded 60% in the research supported, which meets us, and 39% in the grassroots. So right now, you're okay with the percentages with 1.383 left to fund. And you can either go, I'm a teacher at heart, so that's why I'm standing. You can either go with the philosophy that you've been using, or you can do something different.
By philosophy, you mean come up with your top three?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
So what Holly was suggesting was that she could then fill in the next level. So these are the top four.
Right.
So you've got a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8, right? By these scores. So she can fill that in and you can see what that is, or you guys can go in a different direction. Now that you have agreed to fund the consensus of your top priorities. Does that make sense what I said? Okay, so now, Madam Chair, you can lead the group in deciding if you want to fill in 5, 6, 7, and 8,
Okay.
or if you want to do something different.
Okay, so does everybody understand what she's saying? We could do 5, 6, excuse me, we could do 5, 6, 7, 8, or we could do 1, 2, 3 again. What are y'all feeling? Do you want to just go with our other numbers? It seems simple, or do you want to take another stab at this $1 million?
How do y'all want to read to be exact? Because that's more than.
You could also consider your original ranking scores, or you could eliminate a bottom.
So, I mean, basically, but looking at the numbers, I mean, it's kind of, the decision is either, well, if you funded Boys Town, you couldn't fund anything else. And then you can basically fund 2 programs, because all the other ones are right around half.
You can get 3.
You could get it.
You can get 3, you can get 12. And you can get, 3, 12, and you can get 10 and 9.
You've already.
But remember,
So let's decide how we want to go about determining that. Can we at least, yes, ma'am.
Can we do another top 3?
I would like, yes. So hold on a second, so she's saying, let's do another top 3.
Make a motion.
Okay, so she's moved that you do another top 3 out of the remaining
Yes.
applications.
That's
Okay, so that's the motion on the
Second.
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 Seconded.
All right, y'all.
So any discussion?
Any discussion?
Then you.
All right, now you need to.
All right. So.
Whoa, call for the vote.
Okay, so let's vote.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay,
All right, so at this point,
we are going to.
for 2 minutes, you will pick your top 3 of number 1, number 3, number 8, number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 14.
Can you call those one more time? please?
Sure. So number 1, 3, 8, 10, 11, 12, 14.
We have 1:35 left.
Why do we get 3 minutes to color and highlight the one?
No, I'm talking about like really, okay, that works, yeah, and then the color works.
That way they're off the table. I'd like to.
Everybody's a critic, Holly.
A minute left.
Okay.
I promise, we, y'all let us pass less time. We are not framing the decision. We're just trying to give you the guidance to help you get there. And I'm making, okay, yeah, I was gonna say, let's pick those scores out.
That part of the record. So I'm gonna get over here.
Or hide that on.
Eight.
Coming to our last 10 seconds.
All right, time is up. We will ask Ms. Clay to call a roll. And we will take the top three of the 8.
Donna Austin,
8, 10, 11.
Thank you.
Raquel Cisneros,
3, 1, and 8.
Thank you.
Whitfield Leland,
3. Well,
Thank you.
Yolanda Rochelle. I have 9, Oasis Counseling.
That's already funded.
That's already
Oh, you
funded.
mean number 8?
I mean, 8,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
8, 11, and 10.
Thank you.
Neil Skeens,
8, 10. I'm sorry, 8, 3, and 1.
Thank you.
Mary Diallo,
3, 12, and 3, 11, and 12.
Thank you.
Corbin Denegi,
3, 10, 12.
Thank you.
Max Hurley,
8, 10, and Divine Healthcare, 12.
Thank you.
Dr. Lenny Marshall,
11, 12, and 3.
Thank you.
Bernice McMillan,
3, 12, and 10.
Thank you.
Denise Shorter,
3, 11, and 12.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings to. So your top scores are number 3, legal services. The next level is number 12, divine healthcare. The next one is with 6 points,
Hold
number
on,
10.
look,
Sorry, I hadn't finished filling them out.
Oh, okay.
Getting there now. I just wanted to call them out first.
And I'm touching, I can't, it won't do it, so I'm sorry, I didn't measure it.
Okay, so I would like to point out
Mm-mm.
0. There we go. So your highest ones, if we were to add them in,
Mm-mm.
and I'm just gonna take the 2 highest at 8 and 7 and or add them in as money is available. How does that sound?
Mhm.
I didn't mean to do some. So. And the next one was this one.
Yeah, the numbers are kind of perfect, don't they?
So that takes us to a 1.7, and then if we take number 6 as the next level,
and y'all can. throw
that takes us to 1.7.
Oh, wait a minute.
Holly,
What?
Number's wrong.
look at that, I want to, that number's wrong.
Oasis, navigator. Here you go.
Okay, so let me just kind of come back over here. So the highest one there was legal
Go
services.
back to full screen, Howard.
She has to
I'm
do that.
sorry.
I can't do that. Okay. So. That adds in tab 3. That's legal services. And the next one would take up tab 7, which are tab 12. There you go. And then the next one with 6 points was tab 10. What you'll notice now is we still have 158,000, but we are not in our percentage proportion. So we're gonna have to make an adjustment.
I think that was.
Something.
The other thing, just to point out is that, again, I just want to remind you, you do not have to spend the 2.4, but the requirement is you can't go over 2.4 and have to have the majority in the top category. Okay.
So in other words, the 150 to 8, you don't have to score, huh?
Oh, so what happens if you take that fourth one out?
That we would be in correct position.
I love it. With 657,000
Whoa.
unfunded.
Man,
Well, that's supposed to be.
Say,
It's not.
So, give me it again.
again.
I was just saying, what did you say?
But why did we take it out?
Just to see where
because
it's
the
at.
proportions
Just to
were
see
all,
where-
Oh.
percentages were.
You gotta go 16.
Yeah, but it's also true that that exact applicant actually was with staff's help, reshifted into that category in the first place. And so I don't know that that's a problem as far as.
So let me correct that. It wasn't with staff's help. It was that we reviewed the applications and that application had originally applied in research supported. And after our review, we decided it in fact was not a research supported program and we moved it into Grassroots.
It did not meet the criteria.
Yeah, I was being just diplomatic and short about it, but is that really an issue though, when you guys come back to council, you think they're gonna go, this is outrageous, this is not what we asked for, if this percentages are wrong? There's only one at 70.
I wouldn't play with.
My guidance is that the council made the decision to put the majority of the funding in evidence-based research supported programming. And so the expectation is that that's what you all will do for obvious reasons. When you're looking at more research supported and evidence-based programs, there is a track record of their performance, even if it's not in this community, it's in other communities. Whereas your Grassroots, we will be helping them to do that, to codify their processes.
I just have a question about our number 4 from the first vote that we had, because we did our top 3. What was our 4?
The number ones, Holly student.
Yeah, it has 5 points. So tab 9 and tab 13 had 7 points. Tab 4 and tab 2 had 5 points. The next level was 3 points. So we took about 4 from that cut.
What I would like to propose to you all though is that we follow the process that we just, went through these votes on, because I think we all felt pretty good about the way that kind of worked out. And that produced the result of funding number 10. And I think that to the extent that staff wants to work with the council on the agenda item, it would at least be my intention that we go ahead and fund that navigation program.
So I disagree with that. And the only reason I disagree with it is because it's how they set the percentage. And to be honest, if we look at what we had, we take out family services, Brownsville, prep, like everybody at the bottom, if we put anybody at the bottom, we gonna lopside our numbers.
Yeah.
So we know that with the money we got left over, we cannot fund Boys Town America because we don't do half or do no percentage. So, I mean, it's the navigation council, I think it kind of, in my mind, it falls in the same place or whatever they decide to do. So I just say, I would put a motion on the table to go ahead and fund number 8.
Number 8.
And get us, you know what I mean? That way we don't have no debate.
Okay.
You feel what I'm saying? We can't go down to the bottom and fund it.
Okay.
So hold on a second, let's hold on a second.
Hold on, so he put that motion, but you all don't have a motion, you don't have anything for this next round. You haven't made any decisions about this next round. So are you saying 3 and
So
12?
I put a motion to accept this, what we already done, and
And
then we'll go.
so if this, so Holly, let's make.
So what's on the motion is 3 and 12.
Right,
That's the motion.
so Leland just moved that y'all go ahead and add 3 and 12 to what you've already funded.
So in this motion, I was like,
No, you can't.
No.
That's a separate.
We're not there yet.
It's a separate motion.
So that's his motion. There needs to be a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Cause you have okay, what's going on?
Well,
What's the question?
I'm clear.
we
thought it was clear
you're the
about-
chairwoman, so we
You can't see the,
I don't.
numbers on this. I
You
just
can
want
say
some
the-
clarity. Okay. Hold on. I'll explain.
Okay.
Make sure. So legal services out of your second round. I'll see.
I'm making the numbers, there you go.
Got it. So out of your second round where you picked your next three, legal services got 8. Divine Healthcare got 7. The next one is Oasis Navigation. It originally was highlighted and that number was in there. Let's go back to that, Holly. And it took you to 2.2 and left 158,000. The problem is the percentage was lopsided. So you had 51 here, 48 here. So I can't remember who it was that said, well, let's take that out and see where we end up. So Holly went back, took that one out. You're now at 1.7 with 657 left. Your percentage is right-sided. And so Leland's motion was that you go ahead and approve the 2 and then move on from there.
Well, I would like to support the motion, if you will accept a friendly amendment, which was really what you had suggested, which was to fund number 8 in recognizing where they scored, but in also recognizing the importance of staffs in the council working together to bring back the proper percentage of the groups. But I'd like to make an amendment to include have a outpatient.
So can I, before you do that, can we do it so I can see what the percentage is?
There's another question here.
I feel like it's a like walk this one in and then go into your second one.
You can, I mean, you can.
I mean, if there's a.
If he has to accept, yeah, if Leland accepts his amendment, then you guys.
Same thing, it's, so we won't have.
But we do have a discussion. Yeah. Let's make sure you.
Well, now we're in discussion on his amended motion.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're basically picking by one person between 7 and 6, we're basically picking one of the lower ranked programs, locking it in and potentially excluding the much higher ranked navigation program of Oasis.
But you can't have a navigation program.
Amen, whoa.
I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think we were at like 52% was.
But Mr. Steve, how would you answer that? Because I agree with you, but how would you answer the concern that my friendly amendment was intended to address, which was the concern raised by SECO, which was that if they were to do exactly what you said, it would create this lopsided percentages.
You gotta have it.
Well,
Hold on, he's.
I don't have a great answer for that. I don't think we're far off of that number, but I can't even, I can't do the math without seeing it, but I mean, it just seems equal, even more lopsided that something that scored 79 gets locked in when something that scored 85.5 doesn't. And it's a smaller number to delete from that.
Okay.
That's not me.
That's me.
Yeah, but if we could just let one person at a time talk so that we can give them, that's the respectful thing to do.
I mean, we've sort of screwed up the rankings have sort of lost some meaning here anyway, which is a little bothersome. But to go this far and knock out a $500,000 program with an 85 in favor of a 79 score with half that money is just, it seems like a procedural process that's producing a bad substantive result.
Okay, hold on. Holly has a procedural.
I just wanted to remind that you're not comparing apples to apples with your scores between the
I know.
two groups. So just keep that in mind.
No, within that category.
Right, you can say within that category that it was the second highest ranked proposal. I feel you on that. I just want you to be careful, or just making a cognizant point of saying, comparing the 79 to the 85 is not apples to apples because you brought to the table very different perspectives. It's just a point of clarification.
Okay,
Folks.
we got three over here. I see Max. Go ahead,
So
Leland,
I think everybody was in
and then Kevin.
the fund number 10. But the number don't work for us to fund 10. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, we still talking about the same program, Odyssey for Women and Girls. If we can't let them do the navigating, let's let them do the counseling. Because we can't give, we cannot sit at the bottom and we can't fund boys time because it's over the money that we got. So the comments, like us just having a conversation is like, it makes no sense. That's why we made the motion.
There is a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor, Kevin.
No, I was just gonna say that, yeah, Oasis is 85.57 in the grassroots, but I guess the way I was thinking of it is we're supposed to give more weight to the research-based programs. I think that gives them the leg up. you know.
Right. Absolutely.
So I'm in favor of this.
I would like for you to restate it, if you don't mind, what is the.
So the motion on the floor.
The amended motion, I'm gonna restate it. The amended motion is to fund 312 as your next highest two, and then add 8.
Okay,
That's the motion on the floor.
and it's been second.
The amended motion on the floor, and it has been seconded. Original motion was Hubba Bubba, second was Max. Max offered the friendly amendment to add 8. Leland accepted it, so that's where we are, and we're currently in the question period.
Okay, anybody want to say something about this
Before we go.
before we vote?
No, but could we just, I just want to pause over the numbers that.
Sure. The 2.285 is if this motion is accepted, would be the amount of funded programs, leaving on the table 114,000 and some change. And our percentages, clearly, the majority are in research-based, research supported.
Are
Any
there,
additional questions?
yes, sir.
I think just, you know, the original comment was the council was looking for about 70 to 30. We're not gonna get any closer than this.
So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Hold.
No.
All right.
Down.
No.
It was a no.
So technically, technically the motion carries,
The motion
but the
carries.
recommendation is not a consensus.
Right,
Okay, I got it.
I mean, you could,
that's where I was going
Okay.
next. Okay, so right now,
Can you explain that to us a little bit?
explain.
The difference between a motion carrying and a
Okay.
recommendation or.
Okay, so the RFP, we're in the RFP. The RFP says that the decisions will be made by the evaluation team by consensus. Parliamentary procedures say that consensus means that everyone agrees. Everyone walks out of the room being okay with what happened. If you've done CHSP, that is how they do all their decisions, by consensus. However, as you are getting to that point, you have to have the kind of discussion that you all had. And in order to do that, sometimes you put a motion and actually vote on the motion. So when you vote on the motion, you get yays and nays. So in the case of both times you did your recommendation, you got majority yays and 1 nay, but the yays carry. So now that you have approved what you're going to fund, so you've approved by majority vote that you're funding 2, 9, 3, 8, 4, 13, and 12 at 2.2 million, at 71% and 28%. You voted by majority vote. Now we have to formulate a recommendation to the council that reflects what you voted. The recommendation must be approved by consensus. Meaning that whatever that recommendation is, everyone walks out of this room feeling okay. So why do I say it that way? Because as you formulate that recommendation, if there is a person that says, I can't go with it, we got to sit here until you get there. Even though you just did all of this, if there is anyone that does not approve of all of this in your recommendation, you gotta sit here and figure it out until you get one. Yes.
I just have a question. So what will end up happening if we don't agree? We're gonna have to go back and pull and make our decisions over again, right? We're gonna have to and change our decision making on who we're going to get funded and who we're not.
You're gonna have to have some discussions and some negotiations, and everybody will have to be okay with getting a little bit of what they want.
I think though that staff has flexibility to go back in the agenda and say, well, they didn't reach a full consensus, but they went through.
No, we don't. I'm sorry, Max, we do not have that flexibility.
Okay.
So on this, on each of these, hold on a second, because we
You're
have,
giving us a lot of power. We don't have that flexibility.
Well, I'd like to hear at least what I asked earlier, which is what are your things?
No, well, let me just say this to this consensus point. I mean, mine was a vote on that particular set of acceptances. So, it seems to me we need to be sure that we have made a decision to make this our top. In other words, we don't want to add anything else in. You just take a hypothetical example that I don't support. You've got another $114,000 left. Do we want to fund safe families? I mean, I don't know if we've rejected that. I probably would, given that score. But and the other is that if I were going to make a statement and a recommendation or a comment to the council in terms of this, I think that I would like to see us say, accepting these numbers, that the predetermined maximum amount essentially precluded a high-rated large program that because it's high-rated indicated a lot of support among at least that group that was viewing that part of the proposal. So I think that they need to understand, the council needs to understand that this total number essentially precluded $1 million program because it was that or everything else. So I would like to include that point in this proposal as part of accepting what everybody else has reached.
So if I may, to that point, the next thing we were going to talk about in the recommendation is having clear justification for your recommendation. And I think Neil set it up perfectly. So when you look at your scores in the evidence-based section, there's only one program that you did not approve to fund, and it is the highest program. And I think Neil said it perfectly. If it had, because we don't fund pieces of the program, if it had been funded, it would have taken half of the money. And so you all made the decision. Was that boys?
Boys,
Yeah.
You all made almost half. You all made the decision by this process that we will explain in the memo to do what you did.
Good with that.
I agree.
Fine.
You know, there will also be another opportunity after this to kind of give feedback to staff about, you know, because I think really what you're describing, that needs to just be addressed later on in another procurement. I mean, not to be dismissive of it, but you know, if there was another something that I hate for them to be in a situation is really my point.
no, I don't.
No, hold on, let's take order, Neil.
Can I just, because I think that's an important point. The council also has the power itself in voting for this to change its hat. It can say we want to, they talked about it at least with the food summer thing. You know, we wanted to give more to the food or whatever it was. So I think they should understand as a process that first of all, this consensus precludes the highest rated program in the research supported category. And second of all, that they need to take that into consideration in evaluating that total cap. Whether we want to recommend that they go higher and spend another $1 million on Boys Town is another question. But I think that their somewhat arbitrary maximum precludes the unexpected proposal of a very substantial and highly rated program.
And one way we could address this concern in the future is just say in this feedback session we're gonna have after this, maybe we could have staff in the future say, we want to put more of a cap on the number raise and I'm just trying to find some way to address your concern.
I want the council to hear it. That's my cap.
Yeah.
I don't want the staff knows it.
Yeah.
It's the council that needs to understand. Of course, my other agenda item is they're being ridiculous in not doing the full $500,000 funding, which would be $2.5 million.
Well, look, I'll support what you said.
Hold on, Max, because Yolanda wants to get in here and so does Miss Donna.
Well, this is just a comment for me in terms of a feeling. I feel like we did so much work and it does feel a little unfortunate. I wish there's a way we could get you in on our side.
I'm on your side. That's what I'm trying to
Taking
say.
your vote.
No, he's not changing his.
Well, I'm confused. So let me just finish.
Okay, so-
maybe I can.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because what my understanding is because we didn't have consensus, we have more work to do to reach consensus.
No, no,
Okay, that's
no.
what I misunderstood.
no.
Okay.
You all came to this decision through a democratic process,
Okay.
which is the majority rules. Now that you're at this decision, you have to come to a consensus on your recommendation. So
Okay.
what Neil is saying was his nay votes were just on those recommendations.
Okay.
Now that you are here,
Okay.
he is there, understanding you have to get to consensus. But what he wants to ensure is that the recommendation reflects why
Okay.
you all's decision didn't go to what people expect, which is I scored the highest, therefore I will get funded.
I got it.
So it's not just his message. Your recommendation isn't just for the council. It's for the public.
Right.
For them to understand how you came to the decision of doing this,
So,
Okay.
I think we're gonna lose hope above any second now. So I'm just trying to zone in on the problem here in terms of the concern. So would we be able to get your support for this consensus?
he's not against it.
Right, not if we,
See, we don't
that's what I'm saying. I just want to be.
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So if we can make it in form of a motion and we'll be done.
he doesn't have to make a
That's
motion.
what's confusing for us.
He doesn't have to make,
I think when they draft it,
when we draft it, we'll read it.
reflect that.
We'll make sure it has your points in it. We normally send it to the,
I accept the process.
Okay.
yeah, we normally send it to the lead.
Okay, very
Accept the process.
Miss Donna?
I just wanted to ask, we have 114 plus left. And there's an organization there for 100,000. And I'm just wondering, why are we leaving the 114 on the table? And if we do decide to leave that money on the table, then what happens to that?
It goes back into nothing happens to it. It rolls.
I mean, it does roll over.
Yeah, you don't lose it. You don't lose it. We put it into, it stays in our coffers.
Okay.
And the council could decide that if they go with your recommendation, they could decide, well, since we went with their recommendation, it came in at 114,000 less. We'll take that 114,000 and put it toward another category or strategy. That's the word I'm looking for. Or put it toward another strategy. Council, CSC money it's not use or lose.
Okay.
That being said, we don't want to get in the habit of just not funding.
Correct.
I have a point of clarity for the formal recommendation to Mr. Keen. Is the clarity that you would like included of why something wasn't chosen or the recommendation that future procurement set a cap? Because I've heard discussion and I just want to make sure, or is it both? So this is we're trying to build a consensus around, this is the recommendation that we want to do, right? Those other points that we want to include, I heard you say that we removed Boys Town because the request would in essence eat almost half of the budget allocated for the entire project. But then I also heard someone say this question of a recommendation that future procurement set a cap. That is something that the council considered and chose against in this procurement and previous procurements of not setting a cap. So that's my question for the purposes of the recommendation.
I'm going to try out this idea, but I would say that I'd like it stated not simply as a recommendation for the future, but as a statement of fact, reflecting this process, that the highest rated program not funded simply because it was such a large portion of the total amount. I'd be happy if you stop right there.
I got it. Perfect. Thank you. Hold on. No, I got that's one point.
It is one point, but let me say this. I think in addition to that, when you all went through your democratic process of choosing your top rated programs, that one didn't get chosen.
It didn't get chosen. That is absolutely correct.
For whatever reason. So I think it's twofold to ensure that we're showing what you all did and why you made those decisions.
That's true.
I'll second that.
That's true.
We're not building consent. I don't know, building consent. Any more motion?
Not doing any more motion.
There's no voting. We're in consent voting. We're voting. So I just,
Hold on, Holly. Oh,
that's why it's still a point of clarity. I want to make sure that we're saying that, is it two separate points, or is the reason why in the democratic process that it didn't come out at the top was because the request was so high? So are we just restating that?
The request was so high.
All right, despite their high ranking.
It was a cap that essentially precluded an outsized.
he's saying it's.
The full allocated money. Okay, thank you. I feel like I have what I need to include, or what we need to include in that memo.
Let's make sure. So he's saying because of a cap on the funding for this strategy, that was one reason. And then the second reason would be through the democratic process of the evaluation team, it did not rank out.
But is that because it was taking almost half of the.
I think everybody had their own reasons for why they voted the way.
I wouldn't
they
use the
did.
word ranked out, but it was not supported. It did
Right.
not receive.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you did have rankings over here now. Yeah, so it ended up getting ranked. No, that's what I'm saying, over.
Rating
First
versus
round.
rankings.
Rating.
You got it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I am good with that. And I think that there is consensus to include that as a part of the recommendation, that statement. It's all around. Okay.
And then I do wanna, if I may, so I think that you all have addressed the research supported. I think you've addressed how they, how 4 out of those 5 were funded. I think that addresses that. So now I'm gonna go down to the grassroots, because again, you have the second highest that was not funded. And so we need to be able to justify that. And so part of the justification, correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the second round of priorities, that program scored, it ranked just under, or it ranked such that if included, it would not accommodate the percentages as set by the council.
Correct,
So that's the first
I
thing.
agree.
correct.
It's the same problem in a different spot.
Right. Then the second thing is that when you removed it and looked at the money that you were awarding, you did have a program in that area that could be funded with that remaining money. And that would have been,
Safe families.
there was that's how this one got funded. That's how Oasis got funded. Remember?
Yes. Mhm.
Because originally Oasis wasn't in the number. So you need to be able to say,
We'll spell out exactly how every decision was made.
no, I want this committee to be clear about what you did. So by removing that, it allowed you to add number 8. And so you made that decision to fund number 8, because to have the next ranked one would have taken the percentages out of
Which is
whack.
Oasis.
Right,
Which is just number 10. We just affirmatively state that this body has no interest in funding Safe Families and Children Alliance. I want to talk about why. Because when in that room a couple weeks from now, we're gonna have politicians and we're gonna have people who are calling and doing all this stuff. And it's very easy. There's no, you know, there's a lot of friends around when it's easy to just give another organization money and it's an easy thing to do. I would love to be proud of the fact we can go back to them and say, we saved $114,000. It's going back to the general fund. We're under budget. And I do not want, I want to give SICA the ability to say confidently to the council, if the issue gets raised, they discussed that issue and here's what they said, that they did not want to fund that group and that they suggested coming in at 114.
And now I have to say that that's not my opinion.
Okay.
I rate it, got a high ranking for me.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I disagree.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gale. Yeah.
I would disagree with that because I was not part of that evaluation to make a determination to say, I don't want to fund Safe Family. Like, I don't have enough information. I have to go based on the scores up there. Otherwise, like, I wouldn't want to say, evaluate Karen Mountain said she didn't want to fund Safe Families for Children. Like,
Does anyone who
don't
wants
have
to
that.
evaluate want to weigh in on that?
So may I jump in? I don't know that we need to do that.
Yeah.
Because we have this whole meeting
Good.
on record. It's a
The
recorded
only reason I
meeting.
bring it up is because they're the only one that you could possibly squeeze in.
And
They're
to
not gonna
that
expand.
point, so I could say I would rather leave 114,000 on the table
Mhm.
than fund something that just because I have the money available.
Right.
And I don't have that support. I think that would be a different statement.
And let's take it back. So in this case, we can take it back to the scores. That was the lowest rated.
Exactly.
And so, but I would caution us to be careful in making sweeping statements that we all cannot stand behind, as I left behind at the end of the sentence to the preposition. Okay,
But may I see if I can wrap this up?
yes.
For purposes of the formal recommendation, which would be by consensus, we are recommending to fund those highlighted in green on the screen with a comment that is included in the recommendation that not only spells out the full process of how the decisions were made, but specific to the Boys Town issue, in terms of this notion about an artificial cap, if you will, precluded them. The whole memo will spell out the process and every decision point as highlighted and described by Ms. Green just now. And the last question is that there is a statement included in the recommendation that we intentionally left $114,000 on the table. By consensus. Is there any opposition to that recommendation?
I'm concerned with the word intentional. Because I'm not sure that it was
Intentional, it just.
Just that we are, my question is, do we want to even include that statement that we are leaving 114,000?
I would.
Is that, okay, we can take it out.
I'd like to keep it in.
Okay.
So the question is, so this is where we're at for the last piece. Do we keep the statement in or do we leave it out?
Without intentional.
Maybe we'll vote on it.
I'd like to fund.
Well, we can't vote on it. It has to vote on consensus.
I just say that it wasn't like, for me, it wasn't intentional, but it happened.
Well, that will be spelled out in the process. 2.4 was allocated and we're making a recommendation of 2.2, leaving 114,000 unspent.
Period.
Okay. Okay.
Or let me offer this. I'm sorry, no, I want to offer, then you can go back to what you're saying. So again, get consensus.
Mhm.
The evaluation team funded and left 114,000 unfunded and decided that that would be better than funding the lowest ranked programs. I think that gets it right.
Well, I
I think.
I don't.
Okay, that's your thing.
I don't even know enough about that program to make that statement.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, because even though it's the lowest, 74.14 And the other one is 75.57. We really, there is no difference.
Okay.
Yeah, statistically, there's.
So then we just, it's a statement, we
That's right.
period, left 100, period.
Period.
Yeah,
I'll just say, if you wanted to address that point in a way that might be more acceptable, was that there was not a consensus to spend the remaining $100,000.
I think leaving it the way it was.
Period, that's,
I think it basically says that.
I don't think we should probably.
All right, so period,
I'm fine with it. Period.
consensus. Is there anyone not comfortable with the recommendation going forward to the council?
Can you read it one more time?
We'll see the final version of it.
That is correct. So
Oh, okay.
the full recommendation is that 2.285 and these how many programs? Seven, these 7 programs, 2.2, leaving 114,000 unspent. That's the recommendation with the caveat noting that due to the cap on the allocation and the process that we deployed, that it eliminated a high ranking application due to the funding request being so high. That's it. The memo will also include the entire process of every step and describe every step of the process in the background.
Okay. Okay, so with the agenda, should be a
Okay.
recommendation. Oh, are there any? Hold on, we're gonna turn it back over to me. You're now at the point of the agenda for any team member comments. I'm just gonna quickly go around the room. Ms. Donna, any comments
About the whole process.
about the whole process?
Okay, about the process.
Yeah. Anything you want?
Clarify that we're gonna have it.
Any kind of, okay,
Anything?
the only thing I would just like to say is
Let's pay
that
attention.
the only thing
You got somebody speaking.
the only thing that I would like to say is that the observation here is that as a group majority, we were more interested and felt that the grassroots organizations were the organizations that we wanted to fund more, it seems. And I think that that needs to be taken in consideration because we're all from different walks. And for us to have that type of eye view for those that are the grassroots, I think we should maybe just take a look at that split.
The council should look at that. Absolutely. Reverend Marshall.
All right, I think I enjoyed the process, my second time doing this. I would ask that it be considered that my organization would like to see maybe some sort of certificate awarded to those who participate, some sort of letter of thanks from, for me to encourage others to join the process. Because last year I didn't have anything to show them, so they're like, how did we know you even participated? Because you didn't get any certificate, no letter, or nothing. So maybe it's something to say that we serve. That's all.
We do put it in the minutes
Okay.
of the council meeting at which the decisions are made. I always put it in my executive director's comments, just so you know that there is something out there I can send you immediately. But I love that idea.
Yeah, my CEO says it'd be good if the CEO sent us something saying, thank you for.
Got it. We'll do it. All right, next.
Oh, we have to say something?
You don't have to.
That's a great job with all the documents. I will just say that I couldn't vote for any of the grassroots ones because I didn't have that information. And so it was